good evening, depending on where you're joining from. And it's my distinct honor and pleasure to welcome you to the Association of Pakistani Physicians in North America, or APPNA, the webinar series, which is being organized by the Subcommittee on Medical Education, Research, International Training, and Transfer Technology, or a acronym MERIT. So APPNA MERIT webinar series, which we have been doing it for the last 2 years. And we do it every other Saturday. So we do it now, and then we'll skip the next Saturday, and then we'll come back the next Saturday. And the timings are always the same, which is 12 p.m. in the US Eastern Standard Time, and which correlates to 9 p.m. in Pakistani Standard Time, and other times, wherever time zone you're on. So today's, before we go and talk about today's webinar, a few words about the moderator and the panelists. So my name is Sarfraz Hasti. I'm a rheumatologist by training, and I'm a clinical researcher at the National Institutes of Health here in Bethesda, Maryland. And I've been involved with clinical research for almost 15 years now, both in translational as well as clinical research. And with me, the panelists are Dr. Saeed Uzair, who is sort of the mastermind or the brainchild behind these webinars and the driving force. And then also Dr. Umar Hayat is also here, who is also our panelist, and he's been involved with APPNA MERIT a lot too. So today's webinar is about the Pakistan clinical research landscape, the evolving role of National Regulatory Authority in Pakistan. And we are very honored that the Chief Executive Officer of DRAP, the Drug Regulatory Authority of Pakistan, Dr. Asim Rauf, has also joined. So we are trying to do what is called the 360, meaning that we are trying to do look at clinical research from all different aspects. So we are looking from the aspects of the clinical researchers, from the aspect of pharmaceutical companies, and now, of course, one of the most important part of clinical research is the role of regulatory authority. So the CEO himself, Dr. Asim Rauf, is here. And you have any questions or any comments or feedback, he is the person who will be able to at least take that feedback and incorporate those changes if possible. The presenter today is Dr. Obaidullah, and he's the director of the drug. He is a healthcare professional with a PhD in pharmaceutical sciences and an MPH in public health. And he has over 24 years of professional experience, and is currently associated with the Drug Regulatory Authority of Pakistan, or DRAP, as the Director of Pharmacy Services. And he has a determination to create an environment for promoting clinical research. That's something he's actively pursuing in pharmacovigilance and the pharmacy services. And he has continually played his role to build professional capacity by serving as a adjunct faculty to various academic institutions, in addition to his official role. And he is a regular contributor and offers professional support to international health partners such as WHO, USIP, DIA, AHWP, and other regulatory authorities in therapeutic goods regulations by advocating safety, efficacy, and quality implementation. And he's also a member of many such groups for writing various guidelines, manuscripts, and participating in promotion of harmonization activities of therapeutic good regulation. So without further ado, again, welcome and thank you both to Dr. Obaidullah for presenting, and Dr. Asim Rauf for joining. And I'll hand it over to Dr. Obaidullah to please take it away. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarfraz, and Assalamu alaikum, and good day to everyone. In fact, my association with APPNA MERIT is for quite some time, about four years back. When I started participation in these webinars, basically to enhance my knowledge in the clinical trial and to know the dynamics of the international and national clinical research. Then gratefully, organizers moved me to the list of panelists as well. But during these webinars, invariably, I noticed that there are some observations by each presenter almost, which are considered to be the bottleneck for doing the clinical research in Pakistan. In fact, in February this year, exactly 6 months back, my organization decided me to assign the role of Director of Pharmacy Services. And by virtue of that, clinical trial regulatory oversight is now my responsibility. So I sat with my team and we put all those points which I have noticed during last 3 years and which were considered as the bottlenecks for all these things. So we started working to resolve those issues. And with the help and leadership of my CEO, we tried and we convinced and we resolved some of the basic issues. And now we can say that the clinical trial in Pakistan is on the way. So that's why I'm here to present the Pakistan clinical research landscape, evolving role of National Regulatory Authority and definitely Drug Regulatory Authority of Pakistan is the case. So I believe that my screen is visible to all. So
yes, thank you.
Okay, so I start my presentation with the in fact, there is some problem. I start presentation with the Sustainable Development Goals. These are the United States Sustainable Development Goals. And you can see that goal number 3 is the good health. And good health means that it is a responsibility of every government, every organization to provide the good health to its people of the country. And definitely being signatory, government of Pakistan is always trying to provide all the facilities. And if we specifically see target 3.8, the keywords for this 3.8 is access to safe, effective, quality, and affordable essential medicine and vaccines for all. So without performing clinical trials in any country, it's not possible for any government to provide safe and effective medicine and vaccine. So here comes the clinical trial importance in every regulatory authority and in every government, because without clinical trials and without doing these studies, safe and effective medicines are not possible to provide to any country. If we see that thalidomide tragedy in 1960, which was, thalidomide is a drug which is primarily previously used for in the pregnant ladies to avoid morning sickness. And then it was observed that about 10,000 babies were with the deformed bones. These were born to these ladies. And at that time, it was thought that the regulation which is in place means it needs revision. And all the safety measures which were supposed to be taken at that time that were not optimum. And then it revolutionized the regulation of the drugs and medicine at that time. So we can say that thalidomide tragedy turned over the regulatory scenario of all the components of the drugs and medicine across the world. And from that time, clinical research progressed, and we can see right now that there are many international guidelines and many things which revolve around the clinical research dynamics and all around the clinical research. So we can say that these SDGs coupled with the thalidomide tragedy paved the way for present-day regulation as well. So now coming to the national scenario, and we can safely say that there are 2 eras in regulation of the drugs and medicine in the Pakistan. One before DRAP Act and another one is after DRAP Act. Admitting that before DRAP Act, there was no such regulation which directly regulate the clinical trial in the country. It was the Ministry of Health which decides all the thing at that time about the clinical trial. And invariably, it was the registration board which at time used to have such approval in those cases where the sponsor required that. And in some or most cases, there was no regulatory oversight by any of the regulatory authority. So we can say that at that time, the clinical trial oversight was not as much as required internationally. But after the promulgation of DRAP Act 2012, then it was thought to have a very structured clinical trial mechanism in the country, which should be at par with international level, and harmonized regulation should be there for the clinical trial oversight. And after this DRAP Act, you can say that it is the statutory structure, and you can say that it is there are 13 divisions in the Drug Regulatory Authority of Pakistan, and Pharmacy Services Division is primarily responsible to review the pharmacy practices, pharmacovigilance, pharmacoeconomics, and of course, clinical trial regulatory oversight. So after 2012, all the activities which are primarily related to the regulatory oversight in the country about the safety of the trial, that is being supervised by the pharmacy services. But definitely without having specific legislation, it was not possible to have such type of trial oversight. So I will share subsequently, then there was a subsequent, there are a series of activities for having such type of regulation as well. So after that, if we see that, in fact, all the clinical trial, that have 4 basic parameters which are supposed to be shared. In fact, it's not only the safety and efficacy which is we are supposed to regulate, because trial basically means experiment, and in the experiment there are other things as well apart from the required targets, that is safety and efficacy, and that those points are transparency, credibility, and ethical values. So right now, all the trials which are being conducted in Pakistan, they are not being only assessed from the safety point of view, rather all the other 3 parameters are equally they are equally evaluated by relevant body. And for that purpose, there are 2 regulatory authorities, 2 regulatory bodies in Pakistan. One is the DRAP, which operates through the Clinical Study Committee. And there is another body, which is the National Bioethics Committee, which is working under the Health Research Institute, National Institute of Health, looking after the ethical values of trials. So we can very safely say that all the trials which are being conducted right now in Pakistan, they are being supervised, they are being monitored, they are being evaluated from the regulatory perspectives as required by the ICH guidelines of the GCP. And here it is what I have in the beginning shared, that DRAP Act 2012 sets the pitch for the clinical trial regulatory oversight in our country. And after 5 years long efforts, it was not easy to promulgate biostudy rules, which covers all the components for the clinical trial in the country. And biostudy rules is basically the document which regulate all the safety and other parameters of the clinical trial in the country. These were promulgated in June 2018. And after that, we formulated our Clinical Study Committee, which is a statutory committee, and which definitely technically evaluates all the components of the clinical trial. It has composition as per the international standard. And then we have already moved to GCP Inspectorate as well, which is as per the ICH guideline. So in a nutshell, we can easily say that the regulatory framework right now in Pakistan covers both aspects of the ethical value, which is being covered by the National Bioethics Committee, and another aspect which is responsible for the clinical and safety aspect and efficacy aspect that is being done by the DRAP through the Clinical Study Committee under the biostudy rules. Basically, this slide, I have specifically prepared to outline all those stakeholders which are directly or indirectly involved with the performance of the clinical trial, because in subsequent slides, I will try to share that it's not only the regulatory authority, or it's not only the sponsor, or it's not only the principal investigator, which is responsible for the conduction of the trial. Rather, it is the national ecosystem which is doing the trial. If one of the component of this ecosystem is not doing his job perfectly, then it's very difficult to do the clinical trial in the country. So just to summarize the stakeholders, we can say there are the 4 basic stakeholders for the performance of any clinical trial: regulator, which constitutes the IRB of the institute, NBC, CSC, and Custom Department, and then site, CRO, and supporting team. There are many, many professionals involved in this clinical trial operation, and you must know because all of the professionals here. And basically, there are some people which are directly responsible and some people which are the supporting as well. Like Custom Department is one of the department which is supporting department responsible for the import of the trial material as well. So it is just a summary of the stakeholders, and same stakeholders are mostly involved across the world when any person is doing the clinical trial. Might be the nomenclature is different, but specifically saying that regulator, institution, CRO, and supporting team, these are the 4 pillars which are responsible for conduction of the clinical trial. As I have already shared that National Bioethics Committee is responsible for upholding the bioethical principles in healthcare. It has its complete mandate, legal framework, and function. Just want to share with you the role of the draft is only related to the regulation of therapeutic goods, whether it's a clinical trial or some other regulatory affair. But National Bioethics Committee is responsible for all the healthcare research doing in the country. So it has broader perspective and responsible for all the healthcare research, while DRAP and Clinical Study Committee is only responsible to oversee the clinical trials which are being done for the therapeutic goods in the country. So it is our total summary what we have done till date. We have, in fact, Clinical Study Committee meets regularly. There was some time because members of the Clinical Study Committee are supposed to be approved by the very top federal government level. So there was a time that there was a pause in the meeting, but there are 42 meetings we have heard. And in all these cases, we have approved 91 clinical trial sites, 62 clinical trials, and 20 CROs are right now there. And in 91 clinical trial site, we have both public and private infrastructure hospital. Some of our hospitals are JCI accredited as well. There are large public sector hospital having some hospitals having 1,000 beds facility as well. Various specialties are there. So we can safely say that no such facility or no such medical specialty where the clinical trial is supposed to be done in any part, that facility we don't have. We have complete facility in our country with dedicated and knowledgeable people who supervises all these activities. So 91 clinical trial sites are sufficient to take care of all the things. And at the same time, 20 CROs, these CROs comprise not only national, rather multinational CROs are very much here, but interestingly, that some of our large institutions like NAMS and some other institutions, Khyber Medical University, they are also have CRO license, so they operate in the same manner. And in the bottom, you can see that we have put some studies for the bioequivalence and bioavailability. And definitely, I must admit that the number of studies which we have approved for the bioequivalence and bioavailability and centers are very, very less as compared to the need of the day. Reason being because in previous legislation, there were some points which were the bottlenecks, like due to which we couldn't operate in our country for the bioequivalence center. And during last 3-4 months, due to efforts of our leadership, we ultimately now we are able that those bottlenecks have completely been removed. Like just one example, that there was one requirement to have the approval document from of the innovator product from the country of origin. Now it was something very unique which we have demanded in our country. So now all the bioequivalence studies are being done as per the international norms, and definitely it's a forum where we can I can share with you to encourage that please come to Pakistan for all such type of activities so that we can perform all these bioequivalence and bioavailability studies in the country. And definitely this study center needs to be increased as well. So it's basically ecosystem where right now we are working with complete infrastructure in our country. And it is further bifurcation. And you can see that right now we have approved 62 clinical trials. Out of these 62, a major chunk is being done for the phase 3 studies. About 34 studies are for phase 3. Phase 4, about 7 studies. Phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 is for the 5 and phase 2 about 13 studies. So we can say that still internationally, we are being reliant for mostly for the phase 3 studies, and still we need very much hard work and struggle, both at the end of regulatory authority and at the end of the principal investigator to perform phase 1 and phase 2 studies in our country. And as I have shared that we are responsible to oversight the clinical trials for the therapeutic goods. So we have approved and some of the clinical trials for the medical devices as well. As you can see for the bifurcation, 36 pharmaceutical trials, 17 for the vaccines, 3 nutraceutical, 3 medical devices, and 3 for the traditional Chinese medicine. And interestingly, these 3 medical devices are for the indigenously manufactured ventilators in the Pakistan. It's a very good news, although COVID has very bad experience almost with every person. But the light at the end of tunnel, which we can see from the COVID, that is that right now, Pakistan industry has started manufacturing ventilator. And recently we came across one ventilator, which is very advanced ventilator, and hopefully we will get it approved within coming 6 months. So right now we are working on all these things. Similarly, traditional Chinese medicine is another avenue where our brother country, China, has selected Pakistan in addition to other countries for performance of the clinical trial as well. So in the nutshell, if we bifurcate these 62 studies, 48 studies are for the multi-country trial, and 14 studies are exclusively trials which are being done in Pakistan, and 3 nutraceutical devices and traditional Chinese medicines are one of them where we have conducted these trials. So it is the summary and crux of all the clinical trials which we have conducted till date in Pakistan. In fact, when we talk about the multi-country trial, so it's easy to say because most of the time, these multi-country trials have been assessed by the advanced regulatory authorities of the world. So it's easy to say that these trials are reliable and results are can be assessed through some international good regulatory authority. But often I have listened to some of the comments of some of the people that the traditional trials which are being conducted in Pakistan for the indigenous products are some one country trial. They are nothing, but rather they are just Nishistan, Guftan, and Barkhastan. But I just want to share with you 2 examples where trials which have been conducted in Pakistan got international accreditation and publication. First, I want to share with you the trial which we conducted during COVID time. It was phase 3 trial for the vaccine, adenovirus type 5 vector vaccine manufactured by the CanSino Biologics. Phase 3 trial was conducted in Pakistan. About 18,000 subjects were recruited. And just to share with you that it was the first trial, first vaccine which was approved by Pakistan, rather first product which was approved in Pakistan after performance of the phase 3 studies indigenously. So this vaccine was first approved by Pakistan Registration Board on the basis of evidence-based data of the trial in Pakistan, and then subsequently it was approved by 5 other regulatory authorities, China, Mexico, and some other authorities as well. And latterly, the trial got published in Lancet. So definitely, Lancet has some very good accreditation as well. So just want to share with you that it's not only the trial, it is all the ecosystem which has this appreciation when it was published in Pakistan. So it was the trial which was exclusively done in Pakistan. Another I want to share that was the Chinese traditional medicine. This trial was also done in Pakistan in one of the institutes at Karachi. And interestingly, when the results were submitted, this trial got the International Award for Contribution to Chinese Medicine Achievement Award in Medical Sciences. And this trial got 2nd prize as well. So just to share, it's a purpose of sharing these 2 slides. It's the confidence building measures, CBM, that the trials which are being conducted in Pakistan, if it is the multi-country trial, then reliability is more because it's being evaluated by various regulatory authorities. But the trial which is exclusively being evaluated by Pakistan or exclusively being done by the regulatory authorities of Pakistan, they have also got appreciation as well. It is only for the confidence building of people. So very importantly, that no part of the world can say that we are perfect, but there are certain parameters by which one can say that I have been assessed, my organization have been assessed by various regulatory authorities or various international health partners, and we have been ranked A, B, C, or what category, and that builds the confidence. This slide, which I'm showing to you, it is the WHO's global benchmarking for the national regulatory authorities. WHO has a program for the accreditation of the regulatory authorities for all the 9 regulatory functions which any regulatory authority is supposed to perform. And one of the function is the clinical trial oversight. So as our CEO has just shared with you in the beginning, when we were discussing informally, that we have been audited by the WHO and WHO about 3 months back. And during this audit, just to apprise you that the clinical trial function in our regulatory authority has got the 92% of the implementation which is required, which is a very successful status for us and for such a function which we have recently started. And all this credit is for the leadership of the DRAP and all the team which is working in pharmacy services division, because those people worked really hard for getting this 92%. Just to admit that still we are in the phase of recognition. We will be again inspected within a period of 1 year, but right now we are very clear on the pathway of the international accreditation, and which will further increase the confidence of various stakeholders in on our regulatory authority. And it is the statistics where we are right now for this benchmarking. Like you can see blue and gray, that these are the implemented and partially implemented doesn't mean that it's non-compliant. It is a 75% compliance. So we are very much hopeful that within 6 months time, when again WHO people will come to Pakistan for the assessment of our NRA, the clinical trial function and along with other functions will qualify for the accreditation, and then we will be considered as a WHO recognized regulatory authority. These basically, this assessment is not something which we can say easy task. It is basically indicator-based assessment where all the indicators are supposed to be achieved by any regulatory authority, and by virtue of that, we have achieved all these things. Now, just to apprise, because I'm saying that a large number of participants are with us, to how we operate in our system. So we are very much cognizant of this fact that it's not an era where person should come to our office for the to seek any information. So our vision is to put all the things on our website, and you can see that all the resources which are integrally required for the clinical trial application, it's all available on our website. You can see our bio-study rules, clinical trial application guidelines, process flowcharts, approval list, and everything is available. I will not go into details, but I will just try to share something with you that clinical application guideline. This is a guideline which you can review any type of application which you want to see. It's a complete document which have been prepared by our team. It's available, how you can work, what are the requirements, who can apply, where to apply, and what are the procedures. So it's a complete document and you can review. So for all the participants who wants to have an insight about the clinical trial guidelines, rather CRO renewal process, they can see and they can have all the information. Another which I want to share with you, it is the application process flowchart with timeline. It's very important because when any person wants to submit an application, he or she must know how much time it will require to approve my application. So you can see in this, I will show only just one application like authorization to conduct the clinical trial. You can see that it's a process flowchart with the timeline which is available on our website, and we strictly try to comply all these things. It's very clear that what is the responsibility of the applicant and what is the responsibility of DRAP and how we will produce. And at the same time, all the requirements like applications, submission of fee and everything, it's available, checklist, it's online available, and you don't need to visit our office. So it's all about the this component. And the last which I want to show with all the participants, that is the, in fact, our website. In fact, because just as I have shared, there are 13 departments. So you will go to the clinical trial oversight, and you can have all the information related to clinical trial investigation products, how we regulate clinical trial, what are the clinical study committee. Even we have put all the minutes on our website for the information of the public and stakeholders as well. what is the guidance and what are the approvals required, how you will proceed for the national ethical approval of the trial, and we have put the link of National Bioethics Committee here. So all this information is available on the website. So at time people want to have that, we want to have some consultant or like that. So my suggestion to all these people would be to please go on the website, study the things, it's already available. So it's another glimpse of the application like GCP inspection, application process, it's all available on our website. Now, I just want to share one thing with you, that is clinical trial registry of Pakistan. In fact, it's always data is everything. Today, in today's world, every person wants to have access of the data. So if you go to our website, you can see the clinical trial registry. And when you will open this, you can have complete data of all the trials which have been approved in our country. Like I just put it here, vaccine, any keyword, then you can have all the details of the vaccine, which, and what is the status, study title, start date, and you can have even information about the, who is the applicant, details, study design, outcome, which are measurable criteria, and what is the right now status, and what are the sites which are presently doing this trial. So the purpose of showing is to all of our participants is just to enhance the confidence of all the people who are directly or indirectly involved in the clinical trial in Pakistan, that regulatory authority in Pakistan is trying to have standards as per the international practice. Reason being, because clinical trial is never a domestic scenario. It's always international. And how much to maximum we can facilitate to our sponsors and the investigators, maximum benefit our country can have from the clinical trial. So it was all about the clinical trial and about our online availability. Now coming to the last 4 slides. In fact, in my presentation, at any point of time, I have not asked this, that we have achieved everything. Still, it's a very long way to go, because due to late start of the clinical trial ecosystem in the country, we have already missed many opportunities which have been availed by other LMICs, and they are working above Pakistan. So there are some factors which, if we follow, then we can achieve and we can do all the things. So these are the list of some of the international key success factors which I have outlined, and it's very important for all of us. And for the regulatory authority, it is the automation, because although we have shared that we have put the information on our website, but still our submission of application is manual, and we are struggling, and hopefully that within maximally 6 months time, we will have a complete automated system where no person will be required to visit our office for all these things. So there are some of the factors and which are supposed to be done by every regulatory authority. Now it's the last slide, technically last slide for the SWOT analysis. And SWOT analysis is a reasonably good way to measure and determine the strengths, weakness, or limitations, opportunity, and threats for any organization. So I have done SWOT analysis for my organization for the clinical trial as well. It's not the SWOT analysis for only drug. It is the SWOT analysis for the clinical trial research in the country. What are the strengths and what are the limitations and other things? So if we go for the strengths, then definitely we have tried to provide an enabling regulatory ecosystem. Our legislation is right now harmonized with the international level. We have functional CSC and National Bioethics Committee. Another benefit that we are English-speaking research staff. When we came across various international people, they mostly are very happy when we communicate with them in English. Since last 6 months, we have received about 10 delegations across the globe, which are interested to have clinical trial in Pakistan. And definitely it's a credit for our CEO as well, because he personally met each and every delegation. He spared time to welcome them and to persuade them that our regulatory environment is so so viable that you can come, you can have clinical in Pakistan. And one of the factor is that we are the same English language people. Another one is the mapping of process and guidelines are available publicly. So these are some strengths, but at the same time, we have some weaknesses as well. And these weaknesses are not related to one of the person or one of the stakeholder. These are the weaknesses which I have outlined. It is of the system. Like, first of all, our research culture is very weak in our country. Industry academic linkages are not up to the mark. And without industry academic linkages and research culture, development of the culture, it's very difficult to build the clinical research in our country. So my suggestion would be that industry should interact with academic institutions so that problems of industry should be addressed in the academia. And that will not only help industries to get their problems resolved, rather it will build the strength of our academic institution as well. Second and most important, another very important point is the resources, capacity building and competency. And again, I'm talking about all the stakeholders which are involved, that we really need to enhance our capacity. Still, we don't have CMEs, continuous medical education, continuous professional education. Our councils don't require that. So we need to have CMEs, CPEs for every profession, every council, so that our capacity for specific area should be increased. Another limitation which I have seen, that is a quality assurance management plan. Most of our research site believe that we have investigator with us, we have CRA with us, we have patient with us. There is no need of any quality assurance. It's altogether a wrong concept. GCP requires the quality assurance personnel to be present during their trial. So quality assurance is very important. Cross-discipline gaps like customs, it's very important because there are some wrong perceptions. Next point is wrong perception, that this type of trial is basically putting our population as a guinea pig. I just want to share an example with you that we approved one of the studies of the Gates Foundation, very renowned foundation involved in the clinical trial, and about 2 months back, rather 3 months back. And a few days back, they approached us that still they have not received their trial material because custom people are saying that how we will release all these things about the trial. So I believe there is some gaps between various government departments, and we need to bridge these gaps as well. Similarly, wrong perception, public and media, it's very important. And at times when we interact with our media people, then we request them to please cooperate with us. I just want to share another example with you because these are the clinical trials. Clinical trials mean there can be some, might be, and there can be some side effects of any vaccine or product as well. So there was a vaccine which we put on the trial, and there are some serious side effects. And because we have tried to build a system that all our SAEs should be reported to us immediately, and those SAEs got leaked into the media. And there was a long story of the media that the Pakistan Regularity Authority has put their people as a guinea pig and so not what they have published. So again, it's an awareness campaign needs to be done, and it is our limitation that then we give various excuse and everything to the media as well. So my request to our colleagues from the media, if any person is here, or we are also thinking to have some awareness session that perception should be built, because when such type of news are published in the media, then international sponsors avoid to come to Pakistan. So it's one of our limitations. Another one is the IT infrastructure, and I already shared that we are planning to have good IT infrastructure in the future. So coming to the opportunity, access to diverse patient pool. Yes, we are a population. Today, census has been released, and according to that census, probably we are 24 crore people. And at the same time, patient pool is very large. Although it's not a good to say that we have a very large disease burden as well for some diseases, but it's a fact that we are the largest population with the diabetes. We are the largest populations with some other diseases as well. So those diseases and disease burden has put us for a good opportunity to have clinical trial. At the same time, we have vast pool of qualified healthcare professionals as well. Taking advantage of the clinical trial registry of Pakistan. Now, many people have appreciated about this idea that we have showcased Pakistan statistics on our website. Joint ventures with multinational CROs are also importantly. Another avenue which I believe that if we will be successful to put Pakistan on the arena of the clinical trial, then I believe that medical tourism will be increased in Pakistan. And that is an area where some of the countries are having many good foreign reserves exchanges as well. So it's one of the another area. Now coming to the threat as well, that regional competition is very much in, and because most of us definitely know that there is competitive recruitment design, and due to one reason or another reason, international sponsors prefer to go to the Philippines, prefer to go to the Malaysia and some other countries. But I have seen during the last 7 months that now many sponsors are coming, but for that purpose, all the stakeholders should be very much professional in their behavior. It's not only regulatory authority. I have listened many things about the clinical sites as well, that they insist those sponsors to make them as a principal investigator, and due to their this attitude, many studies have been gone from Pakistan. So we should be very much of the national interest, and we must have some national thinking as well. Another threat which we have right now that I've already shared, that we have less options for phase 1 and phase 2 studies. Staff rate attrition is very, very high. Unpredictable timelines. Again, it's not again the timelines for the regulatory authority, it is the timeline for the execution of the study is very important. And last 2 points which are very important, that non-compliance to research ethics and GCP guidelines. It's important because international sponsors always look how ethical we are in performing of our studies. So we must upgrade our practices for the research ethics and GCP. And last one is the patient and subject rights are also very important, which we need to go. So it was all about the clinical aspects and technical aspects. Now it's my last slide. And this last slide, probably some of you might be thinking that this slide is nothing to do with the clinical research in Pakistan. But in my opinion, it is one of the very relevant slides, which is very relevant to our clinical trial ecosystem. Basically, it is an African proverb, and it says, like, if you want to go fast, then go alone. But if you want to go far, then go together. So my humble submission to my colleagues present here, all the stakeholders here, that we want to go far. So please collaborate with each other. We are professionals, and if we want to go further and we want to go far, then we must cooperate and professionally with each other, integrate each other, and rely on each other. So thank you very much for your time and listening me. Over to the Sarfraz.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Obaidullah. That was an excellent presentation, a very thorough overview. If you can stop sharing your slides, I think that'll be great. So again, a huge thanks to you and your organization and Dr. Asim Rao for joining. And I see Dr. Akhtar Hamid has also joined. So welcome to Dr. Akhtar Hamid also. Before we open it up with the panelists and the question and answer, I see that the chat box is lighting up like a Christmas tree, and we have a lot of questions and everything. So one of the things that I should mention here, taking the lead from your presentation today about the overall participation and a sort of a 360 view of things, where there are multiple stakeholders, not only the regulatory authorities, but the CRAs, the CROs, the PIs, and so forth. We from APPNA MERIT have created a digital library, which has links to multiple resources, including how to conduct clinical research, regulatory and ethical principles of clinical research, and also a lot of information about statistical principles and things like that. So that is freely available, and it's a WhatsApp link. And I think Dr. Ozair, who's instrumental in developing the digital library, has shared that link. So please use that link to join. It is an excellent resource for all of you to benefit from. And like always, all of these presentations that we do through our webinar, for example, today's, it will be available on our YouTube channel. So if some of you have missed some part of your presentation, they can always go back and listen. So again, a big thank you to all of you. And then now I hand it over to our panelists, Dr. Uzair, Dr. Omar Hayat, Dr. Akhtar Hamid, and of course, Dr. Asim Rauf is also here from representing DRAP, in addition, Dr. Ubaidullah. So Dr. Uzair, please, your comments, take it away.
Uh, Thank you very much, Sarfraz, and a very warm welcome and thank you to all the participant technical team, panelists, and the DRAP team. So we are so excited to welcome the team because that was my wish list that someday we should bring the regulator as well, which is the very important component. And here we are. There is where there is a will, there is a way. And when I first met Mr. Asim Rauf, the Chief Executive Officer, so he pledged his full support, and that's very much visible over here. So let's have quickly some question. The first question is about the 62 studies approved in how many years? So that is the question to Ubaidullah, that you mentioned about the number, but the time frame, when we are fully functional. So how much was the time?
It was 2020. Since 2020, we have started working.
Oh, okay. So less than 3 years time.
Yeah.
The next question is, if DRAP has any regulation of compassionate use of drug. I think this question is more to Asim Rauf because I think that's not in your purview. Or if you have an answer or comment on these, the regulation for compassionate use of drug. Would you like to comment on this? Because the question is not very clear.
I think I understand it, the regulation about compassionate use of drugs, and in DRAP, we don't have it. Actually, we need to make it a part of our regulations in order to, to facilitate the patients. We do have, one of the SRO, that is statutory regulatory order, through which anybody can import any medicine. But in true sense, the word compassionate use as practiced in the, other parts or advanced parts of the world, we don't have it.
Thank you. So, yeah, no, Dr. Syed Uzair, I think I can comment as well. We always start from somewhere. So, Dr. Asim, thank you very much for replying. We can work together basically to come up with the guidelines, but we may not have at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next question is about the registry, and that was shared by Mr. Ubaidullah that yes, there is a registry in place. So what is the next one? About sir, is the timetable of CSC plan dates mentioned in the website? So I think you should search the website, and I believe there's a lot of information over there. And if there is something missing, you can approach them. I don't know about, but whenever it's fully functional, Ubaidullah, I will request you about having a suggestion link as well, contact to the pharmacy services that, you are holding, curating all the inputs, somebody from the stakeholder. That will be very functional and useful. So there is another question from a student. And my team has been performing the clinical trials on the analysis of effectiveness of naproxen sodium and diclofenac potassium in post-operative pain after non-surgical extraction in oral and maxillofacial surgery department at Ladkana. So what things we have to keep in mind to get proper result in comparison of these drugs in association with pain relief? I think this is about the design. Sarfraz, have you understood this question clearly, or Ubaidullah, and you would like to comment?
So I think it's sort of outside of the scope of this webinar. I'll be happy to, and I've designed several clinical trials. I'll be happy to discuss with them offline. I think right now, since we have Dr. Ubaidullah and Dr. Asim, we should make full use of their time. and this opportunity. But if the student want to contact me offline, I'll be happy to discuss this with them about clinical trial design.
Lovely. So please write your email address so that they can contact you.
Sure, I can do that.
Another question from Sardar Shabir. Any therapeutic good going under phase 1 trial in Pakistan? So to Ubaidullah, is there
yes,
any?
various vaccines. In fact, we have approved for the clinical trial for the phase 1 as well.
Okay.
Yeah. And recently, another trial is being in the process, and that is related to the again the treatment of the hepatitis Delta virus as well. That is one of the unique one which will be in Pakistan. So that's one of the point where we can do. There are some trials for the phase 1 as well in Pakistan.
Excellent.
Yeah,
so
I want to respond to the one of the query of the Ladkana, which has been interestingly, and there is some unfortunate events as well. The point which I have shared in my presentation, that regulatory capacity, the capacity building is very important from every professional point of view. In fact, most of us, it's my experience that we don't study the regulations and guidelines as well. So I believe that this study, which the diclofenac potassium and naproxen, which he or she was sharing, it's not approved by any National Bioethics Committee or by the CSC as well. So that's one of the point, that how they have done this clinical trial in Pakistan without the approval.
Normally that question should not be even dared in this platform when the regulators are there.
Exactly.
You can be in prison, my friends, but
this shows the innocence of the researcher as well.
That's very true.
Thank you. The next question is, how a link is being facilitated between academia and DRAP in this regard, because you mentioned in your SWOT analysis. So is there any mechanism to facilitate or to strengthen the link between the academia and the regulator? So this is a very open-ended question. So if anybody would like to comment, from the panelist or from the regulator or Sarfraz, anyone,
I just want to start this point as well. In fact, being a regulator, we have some certain boundaries as well. Rather, every professional has certain boundaries as well. Because we, at the DRAP or National Bioethics Committee, we have some regulatory portfolio. So at some point of time, it's not possible for us to have some process of consultation with the industry or with the academia. Because at the other hand, same both industry and academia then again come to us for some sort of approval. So at times it becomes very difficult. But at the same time, it's a missing link which our Higher Education Commission, which our councils and our association, industry association should think. Because I openly admitted that there was a point of the bioequivalence missing in our regulation, due to which we couldn't proceed further. Now we are persuading our companies that all the bioequivalence studies which they are going to conduct in other countries, in Jordan, India, South Africa. Now we have sufficient infrastructure available in Pakistan. Our labs are well equipped. So please go to these labs for performance of the bioequivalence studies. So here, and some of the bioequivalence centers are established in the academic institutions as well. So it is the basically now job of the academic institution to showcase themselves before the industry, to interact with them, and definitely if they require help of regulatory authority from that perspective, we are available to assist them. Thank you.
Lovely. So I think I will request Dr. Sarfraz that we should go today a little bit over time. I think there is a wonderful presentation. This is the first time we are seeing like 143 participants. Very diverse, very active. The chat box was not silent. There was constant pouring of the people. So please, I request you to go a little bit over time today. Thank you.
Well, it's not up to me, but it's Dr. Asim Rauf and Dr. Ubaidullah, we want to be respectful of their time.
You can please continue. Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Greatly appreciated. So the next question is, does DRAP recommend any medication portal for clinical reference? So this is the question. So this question is a little bit too broad, I think. Any medication portal for clinical reference? So is there
like
any...
micromedics?
Is it regarding a comparator? Is it like a comparator? Probably that's what they're trying to...
I don't know, but generally if it means the registered drug portal, that is a separate question. All the drugs which are registered in Pakistan.
Dr. Uzair, it's like equivalent to the Orange Book where they have the reference listed drugs.
Yes,
but I think we all go to the Orange Book, we don't need to reinvent the wheel, probably.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the next question is, do we have to take permission from DRAP for a registered herbal product in its approved indication for observational or phase 1 study? That's open to Dr. Bath. Yes.
Yes, in fact, query is a little bit vague one. If a product is approved, how we can do phase 1 now? So again,
no, they're saying phase 3. They said place correct to phase 3 or...
Okay. Even phase 3 is not required. It's then phase 4 studies then, if it is the approved one. Yeah, definitely that need approval for the National Bioethics Committee and the DRAP. So if we, in a nutshell, if there is any human intervention involved with any therapeutic good, it's a drug, vaccine, medical device, or nutritional products or herbal products, that require approval from the NBC and CSC.
Okay. So
maybe if I can just add one quick comment from our experience here, how when we go to FDA, is that if something is already approved and we are using it for a phase 3 or for phase 4, then the FDA will give an exemption letter. We still have to tell them that we are going to do this, but then they will give us an exemption letter if it's a approved drug using in a non-approved indication. But if it's an approved drug and you're going for an approved indication, obviously it will not be phase 3, it will be phase 4, like more of a so even then, as you said, Dr. Badal, it will be more like regulatory authorities, bioethics that have to approve this. So
yeah, but in any case, you need to inform the regulatory authority that you want to do this.
Okay. So the next question is, what is the laboratory backup and support that DRAP has? So I believe you did mention about the labs you have, for the support and the backup, but I think, would you like to comment, or it's okay? It's very clear.
No regulatory authority itself perform analytical studies or the clinical studies by themselves. So we basically certify various labs for this performance of the study. So by and large, various labs are available, and this I'm specifically talking about the context of the clinical trial, not about the quality aspect of the drug. So various all the clinical sites which have been approved, they have been visited time and again, and they have definitely up to mark facilities. There are examples when at the time of the renewal, if any facility don't have the requisite requirement, then we drop them from the phase 1 and phase 2 trial as well.
Okay, thank you very much. So the next question is, you mentioned about 3 Chinese medicine and 3 nutraceutical. Please guide whether all the nutraceutical enlisted and marked currently with exorbitant rates require clinical trial or are exempted.
Look, like all the clinical trials are before the registration or enlistment procedure. So if any product which have been approved and enlisted or registered, so probably they don't, all the trials have been done somewhere in the country or Pakistan. So approved products don't require some sort of phase 1, 2, 3 studies, one. And second, very importantly, as I mentioned, that we look after other therapeutic goods as well. The phase 1, 2, 3, and 4 studies are specifically designed by ICH for the drugs, medicine, and vaccine. For the nutritional products and medical devices, the scheme of study for the clinical study is apart from the ICH guidelines. There are various other studies like the safety and efficacy studies, there are performance evaluation and clinical validation studies, like ventilators. So the ventilator, there is no need for the phase 1, phase 2, and 3 studies. There are the performance evaluation and clinical validation studies. So nutritional products also goes this way.
Excellent. So the next question is about the research fund. I think that's the Mr. Asim Rauf can comment that how the DRAP is planning to use the research fund collected from the industry.
Yes, it is the hot question in Pakistan nowadays already. A lot of media sensation and political, circles, they are asking the same question. Actually, we have been able to notify the committee to utilize this R&D fund. And fortunately, we have developed the extended scope for utilization of this research and development fund. And this extended scope notification is under final proceedings. It would have to go to cabinet. Once it is approved by the cabinet, then probably we would be using such kind of fund in the best way. And what we do have strategic goals in mind while utilizing these funds. For example, the pharmaceutical industry which wants to get international accreditations, so we might use this fund for that purpose. And then developing centers, bioequivalence center, or for example poison information centers, and developing linkage with academia. So the scope is extended now. Once it is approved, then probably we would be able to use it the best.
Thank you very much. So the next question is there any requirement for approval of non-interventional studies in human beings from DRAP? Ubaid, to you. Unmute yourself, Ubaid.
Yeah, non-interventional means that there is no intervention with the human subjects.
Yes.
So these are the observations. I mean, if there is any intervention with the human subject, then it requires the approval of the DRAP. So I don't know how they want to do the non-interventional study without any human subject. So whether they are asking about some animal studies, I think so. If it is animal studies, so no requirement for DRAP.
So no, I think they're talking about like some observational study, collecting data, like cohort type of studies. I think that's what, or like getting questionnaires filled out, things like that.
So the last question is from Professor Bhutta. The question was on what network of network of linked quality assurance laboratories does DRAP have? That's the part one of the question. And the second part is, note that it needs to have its own. If the linked public sector laboratories were substandard, as was the case in the recent WHO review, why don't they have National Center of Excellence in the private sector or academia affiliated? So that is the direct question I received on WhatsApp. So I'm sharing with you about these linked quality lab. Who would like to respond? Ubaid, would you like to respond to this?
Yes, in fact, what I understood from the question that Professor Bhutta wants to know about the lab's quality control laboratory. Is it so?
Yes.
Okay. In fact, if we see the national perspective of the quality control labs, there are 12 labs in Pakistan working in the public sector. And out of these 12 labs, it's good that Professor Bhutta has put this question. Out of these 12 labs, 6 or 7 labs have already been WHO pre-qualified. And this figure is one of the highest figure in the region, that in no part of the world such big number of the public sector pre-qualified labs are present. 4 labs are in the, 5 labs are in the Punjab, and another lab, CDL Karachi, is near to the WHO accreditation. But having said so, it's not only the quality testing which matters in pharmaceutical. In my opinion, it is a quality assurance which builds the quality inside the product. So what we have since 2018 transformed our policy, that is the shift from the quality control to the quality assurance. And that is one of the factors by which we are right now focusing, and we are right now propagating that sampling should be the risk-based sampling. It should not be the sampling which is being done by most of our colleagues, that if they want to have some sample, they want to have some number of their activities, they go and pick the sample. This sampling, the trend, international trend, is a risk-based sampling and analysis and risk-based audit. So definitely, I'm not saying that we have achieved everything in the quality transformation of our laboratories, but we can say that we are in the midway where we are. Half of our laboratory network is the WHO pre-qualified, and rest of the laboratories are 3 or 4 labs are ISO 17000 certified, and some of our labs, 2 or 3 labs, now they have started thinking of their pre-qualification as well. So it's on my side. Yeah.
So wonderful. I think
just to give me a second, Sarfraz. Let me have a word from Dr. Akhtar Hamid, who has joined. I think he was busy in the hospital, but he took the time really. That what are his comments about the progress with the regulator?
So thank you very much, Dr. Uzair. Thank you, Dr. Uzair, and it's a nice presentation, Subhair. My focus was on your last slide where you mentioned about this SWOT analysis. As we all know, the SWOT analysis 2 part here. One is our internal and one is external. So you mentioned about the legislative framework, regulatory ecosystem, which is your strength, and the weaknesses you mentioned about the industry academic weakness linkages, and the opportunities you mentioned about the diversity, and also there's joint ventures with multinational trials. But I'm going to focus on your the mention about the threat, that the regional competition. Although with the diversity and English language speaking country, what is the constraint having phase 1 and phase 2 trial to get in Pakistan? And if you could also let us know that in last 1 year, how many phase 1 or phase 2 has been registered, so we can see, and what can be done to improve it. Thank you.
In fact, phase 1 and phase 2 trial, these are very basic trial where when we specifically talk about the phase 1 trial, because at that moment of time, there is no report of any type of the safety studies done on the trial material. So by virtue of that, even being a regulatory authority, we are very much careful about granting this phase 1 and phase 2 studies. But having said so, due to one reason or another reason, even we are not receiving any application from our sponsors who are doing trial by virtue of anything, like they still, our confidence of our researcher is not very much optimum. Confidence of regulatory authority is not very optimum. Or at some moment of time when I discuss with some of the sponsors, they are also concerned about the patient rights as well. Like one example which I want to share with you, that no insurance company in Pakistan is doing insurance for the personnel. So for that purpose, they go for insurance from the abroad. So that's one of the reasons. But again, because in some these facilities, even they don't, because at this moment of time, most of our hospitals who are involved in the clinical research, they are not taking this research in a very professional and manner as a business. Till the time when we don't have some specific and purpose-built clinical trial unit, till that moment of time, it will be very difficult for our country that we will have phase 1 and phase 2 trial. As far as I know, there are only 2 or 3 hospitals which have very specific purpose-built clinical trial unit conducting phase 1 and phase 2. Other facilities want to have such type of trials, but they don't have facilities. So that's why we even don't have approved them for the phase 1 and phase 2 as well. So it's not only the regulatory authority, it's the hospital and clinical trial setups as well, which should come forward, should invest in them, should have good ICU facilities for all these things as well. So it's multi-sectorial involvement is involved in this component. Yeah.
May I add?
Thank you.
May I add some
Sir.
point, please?
Please go ahead.
Yes, actually, I think first of all, I would like to appreciate Dr. Ubaid. Like, he has very candidly and very honestly shared what are the problems and what are the strengths, during in the slide that we are referring to. I think the confidence building among the regulators and in the general public, that would come once we conform to international standards. So we are on that pathway, we are on that road where we would be conforming to international standards. So once we achieve that target, which we are on, so we would be confident even, and we would be like in a position to persuade our public and media that we are, whatever we are doing, that conforms to the international standards. And there are hazards, there are, always there are some percentage where we can have some bad results, but that is the way the internationally the things things goes on. So probably I think one of the key factor would be, once we achieve that either WHO accreditation or ICH kind of accreditations or PICS, so we are on that way, and hopefully we would get it soon, inshallah.
Thank you. Thank you so much
again,
Dr. Ubaidullah. And were you saying something?
No, you can't do this today, Sarfraz. If Dr. Ubaid and Asim allows, I would really like to make the comment because it's worth it.
All right.
I knew that. I was afraid of that you will do it. So
it's already 1:15.
Yeah, no worry. I think I will take just 2 minutes. I remember when I met first time with Dr. Asim, and his words were, "I wish I have more than one Ubaid." And today it's proven. So I really want to compliment on that one. We really need the 2 or more Ubaids in the draft, and certainly things will change. The other thing I would like to compliment is, I remember our conversation, and I said to Dr. Asim that your role should not be just like how the drugs are approved, but also having the collaborations with the international regulatory bodies. And I see that one also as the WHO accreditation is coming along. So I compliment on that one too. And I remember, Dr. Ubaidullah, if you look at your first presentation you made on this platform versus today's presentation, there is a huge impact. So I also want to compliment on that one. So there is a more action focused this presentation versus the first one. So I think we need to appreciate that part as well. Coming back to the cross-functional, the stakeholders, I think I can tell you, because I remember, because I sit with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and I hear all the things basically what you guys do. And I remember making my comment in that meeting saying like they were laughing the regulatory pathway. But I will have to say today as well that Pakistan was the first on that trial to recruit the patient. Okay, so to screen the patients, I will have to say. But let me tell you also, because I think this is my role to criticize and give the feedback. Literally, I was in the meeting and they were laughing on the customs, and I was feeling embarrassed. Okay, so they were making the point like, I mean, it was a joke basically. And literally, I was in that meeting and I was just kept silent. Absolutely, we need to work with the custom department. All they need to do is get the approval from the draft, and they should just let that drug go in, because this is the drug we need in Pakistan. So I think this is, I will stop here. I have a lot of things to say, the good things. The other thing I think I should also make the comment, because to me, what makes really this presentation and this conversation more productive, because I remember all the conversation I had with Dr. Ubaidullah, and I see those actions happening now. Because in my first presentation, my comment was, let those CROs to register, let them flourish, let them compete, let them improve the quality. So that's why my comment. That time it was 6 CROs. Today is the 20. So that's also very, very encouraging. And the other thing I will say, it was Dr. Ubaidullah's comment, Umar, the perception will change. And I can tell you that has changed. So with all those, congratulations, you guys are doing a fantastic job. we are not there where we should be. I mean, absolutely. The another thing I really liked in this presentation, we should be aware of our weaknesses, because if we are not acknowledge our weaknesses, we will never be able to improve. So I also appreciate your SWOT analysis. The one thing I would like to add on the opportunity side is that treatment naive patient populations. We have a lot of treatment naive patient population, which is a big attraction for the pharmaceutical companies. And one more point I think probably you should add in your presentation, the regulatory approval time. So we have been presenting in different platforms our regulatory path. And I totally agree, we take the phase 2, phase 3, because those are the trials which are going on somewhere else, means everything is already checked. So we should allow them in a shortest time possible, and that you guys are doing as well. So really amazing work, very much happy to see what we are going on. A lot of competition, regional competition. It's not gonna be the easy, it's not a lowest bar, but if we all work together, absolutely we can bring the revenue, we can bring the treatments, we can bring the trial to Pakistan, and that will certainly enhance our capability and knowledge in Pakistan. And I will stop here, and thank you very much for everything.
Excuse me, a quick response from me, please, if you have a minute.
Sure.
Yes, yeah, thank you very much, Umar, that, the analysis that you have given for this presentation. I always say the critical analysis and harsh criticism always helps. When the WHO team came here, the auditors, I think those were 12, and Dr. Obaid was there, and I told them, please be harsh and please let us know where we are deficient. And the same message I always give to my whole of the team, as Hazrat Ali says, if someone doesn't know the status where he is destroyed. So actually we want to know, where we are standing. So, your feedback, and I would say, the criticism, not simple criticism, right? Rather, the harsh criticism would help us, because we want to improve. We want to move forward, and we want to conform to international standards. Thank you.
Thank you so much again. I think one last request is that I think Dr. Hina Javed has asking quite a bit for, I think she has a question and she has asked several times. Walid, is it possible to unmute her? So just like in real quick 1 minute, we can have her ask the question that she's trying to ask. Please go ahead, but please keep it very brief.
Sure, I will. Thank you. I thought I'll never get the chance. Great presentation. My name is Dr. Hina Javed. I'm a clinician, academic, and a researcher. The presenter has used some of the terms: national interest, compassionate use, excellent terms. They look really lovely when you hear them. What's the practical implication? You mentioned links between academia and regulatory body. The question is, does the trust exist between them? Is there any communication already happening between them? I think if something is not happening and we are talking about it again and again, then I think you need to take a step back, reflect, and start all over again, because that's crucial. You have to get the basics right before you take another giant step, as you have already been taking, and troubleshoot as well. What happens when a person conducting research is raising concerns? Where do they go? I'm not going to use a big term like whistleblowing, because that will be very difficult for us to that won't be palatable. But if I know you're short of time, but if you can just think of these basics for any kind of professional advancement or communication. I'm just trying to address the relationship between academia and the regulatory body. And I know the one which has more power and role and responsibility should take the onus. Even if it comes to naming and shaming the people, we'll have to do it. Let's take that harsh step. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Hina. I think, I don't know if Dr. Obaidullah, if you want to respond real quick.
I would like to hear from him. Yes.
In fact, my point of concern was not about the academia and regulatory interaction. My concern point is the academia industry interaction, because if you talk about the academia and regulatory interaction, there are many statutory forums which the DRAP is looking after, and academia is very much part of that. And like if we talk about the clinical study committee as well, there are many academic people who are involved. Because without academic people, it's not possible for any regulatory authority to proceed. My point of concern is about the academia and industry interaction, because that is very much lacking. If you see all over the world, like Pfizer has launched the vaccine, COVID vaccine, where it was developed? It was developed in R&D organization, BioNTech. So here in Pakistan or countries like Pakistan, this dynamics of industry academic interaction is lacking. It's without saying that any industry is working without any problem. There are so many problems which are in the industry. So these problems are either go under the carpet or result in the wastage of the resources of the industry. So my point of concern, including clinical trial, is regarding the industry interaction. So we can solve the problem of industry into the our academic institution. As far as whistleblowing is concerned, our CEO has very categorically said that whistleblowing and harsh auditing, we like that. But keeping in view that whistleblowing is not, it should be, that whistleblowing should not be victimization. There are very cases that whistleblowing is for the victimization. If that is a genuine person problem, whistleblowing, we are really want to hear that whistleblowing as well. Thank you very much.
Whistleblowing from a knowledgeable person.
Exactly. That matters a lot, and we are ready to accept. So I did 30 seconds.
Just one comment. Just one comment.
No, we cannot have that.
I think, sorry, just one comment. I think the communication between the DRAP and academia should take place if it's not happening. And yes, we should be kind of a bit broad-minded and broad-hearted to be able to listen to the whistleblower, okay? थोड़ा सा दिल बड़ा कर लेते हैं उस हवाले से.
Let's have a separate call.
Last 30 seconds, Sarfaraz, last 30 seconds. I just want to respond one point from the Dr. Hamid regarding the phase 1 and phase 2 studies. In fact, phase 1 and phase 2 studies, most of these studies require PK/PD studies as well. And truly speaking, that studies required a lot of infrastructure and human resources competency as well. And still we are working and building that capacity to the in our CROs and clinical sites as well. So, and the last point, Mr. Umar said about the transformation in the draft for the clinical trial, I just conclude from saying that it is the confidence of our leadership that which they have posed in me, and my credit goes to the team which is working in the pharmacy services division, because it's not only one man's job. It is a team which they are working. My predecessors who started working with these biostudy rules and all the things. So credit goes to them and the team who is working for all this transformation. So it's real credit to them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Dr. Umar, you still have to say something more?
I will say, I mean, on the phase 1 study, as Dr. Obaidullah said, it's really the pharmacokinetics and safety and tolerability. And for new chemical entities, we don't have the expertise and we should not go there. And I'm telling, I mean, of course, we are Pakistani and we want to bring the trials to the Pakistan, but we also very careful about the safety of the patients. Okay. I mean, those media whistleblowers who have no clue of those the trial or the worth of the trial or the research of the trial, they just make the noise for no reason. So to me, first you need to have the first-hand knowledge to criticize anything, and they don't have it, unfortunately. So I think I agree with Dr. Obaidullah. Phase 1, stay out of it until we develop the expertise and systems.
Okay, thank you so much. I think we are way over time. And I think we have to be respectful of Dr. Asim Rauf and Dr. Obaidullah's time, because they are very busy people, and we appreciate that they take time and be here. And I know it's very late in Pakistan, so it's almost past bedtime. So I don't want to hold them up any longer. And of course, we have a lot of participants who are there who have asked questions. So anyways, thank you again, Dr. Obaidullah, for a very informative session, and Dr. Asim Rauf for joining with your busy schedule. And of course, comments from Dr. Uzair, Dr. Umar, Dr. Akhtar Hamid. And also, most importantly, all the participants who were so actively involved in these webinars, and especially today's webinar with their questions and their comments. And lastly, but not least, is our technical support from Waleed and his team, who are always there supporting these, do a lot of background work. So again, thank you, everyone, and we will come and meet you with another webinar in about 2 weeks from now. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.